Late at night, my grandson called me in tears. "Grandpa, I'm at the police station. My stepdad beat me, but he's claiming I attacked him. Mom doesn't believe me." When I arrived, the officer turned pale and stuttered, "I'm sorry." I had no idea. You know that feeling when the phone rings in the dead of night, and your gut just knows it's bad news? For me, Ed Anderson, retired police inspector, that call came at 3:14 a.m., and it didn't just change my life. It dragged me into a war against corruption I never imagined. My 16-year-old grandson, Ethan, was on the other end, crying, saying he was locked up because his stepfather accused him of assault. But here's the kicker. The cop in charge was friends with the stepfather. Can you even fathom that? That piercing ring, that ungodly hour. After 35 years on the force, I knew those calls never brought anything good. I fumbled for my cell, half asleep. "Hello, Grandpa." Ethan's voice, shaky, broken, instantly snapped me wide awake. "I'm at the 7th precinct. They arrested me. Carter says I attacked him, but it's not true. He hit me first." My heart slammed against my ribs. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" I was already out of bed, scrambling in the dark for my pants. "My face hurts." "I'm scared, Grandpa." His voice cracked. "The inspector here is friends with Carter, and he doesn't believe me. Please come. Don't move. Don't say another word until I get there." The words were out before I even fully processed them. As I dressed, my mind raced. Carter Vance. Ethan's stepfather. I always had a bad feeling about that man. My daughter, Mary, Ethan's aunt, died 5 years ago in a car accident. And just a year later, Grace, Ethan's mom, married Carter. I never understood it. He was a businessman, always bragging about his connections at City Hall, oozing with false charm. I grabbed my old inspector's badge. It was expired, sure, but I knew the system. And I knew people still in it. That badge still carried weight. Driving through the empty city streets, anxiety gnawed at me. Ethan was a good kid. Always quiet, always studying, never looking for trouble. If he was in a holding cell, something was deeply, fundamentally wrong. The 7th precinct. I knew that building like the back of my hand, worked my first 10 years there. The familiar smell of stale coffee and disinfectant hit me the moment I walked in. It was like an unwelcome reunion. A young officer at the desk was typing, oblivious. "Good evening," I stated, my voice firm despite the tremor in my hands. "I'm Anderson, former inspector. My grandson, Ethan Alvarado, is being held. I want to see him." She looked up bored. "One moment." She typed a few more keys, then picked up the internal phone. "Inspector Camacho, there's a man here who says he's the grandfather of the kid detained for assault." I tapped my fingers, impatiently. That name. Camacho. The inner door opened, and Victor Camacho appeared. My stomach dropped. Heavy-set, about 50, a graying mustache, small, suspicious eyes. We'd worked together years ago, and we'd never gotten along. I always thought he was too flexible with the rules. Well, Ed Anderson." His voice was deep, dripping with mocking familiarity. "Long time no see, partner. I'm not here to socialize, Victor. I want to see my grandson and know exactly what he's accused of." My voice was ice. Of course. Come into my office." He gestured, leading me down the hall. I saw the temporary holding cells, and in one of them, Ethan. Head down, shoulders slumped. I tried to go to him, but Camacho stopped me. "Let you and I talk first, Ed. Things are complicated." In his office, Camacho settled behind his desk. I took the chair opposite, my eyes scanning the room. A framed photo on his desk. Camacho, a group of men, hunting Trip. And there, in the middle, smiling, holding a rifle, Carter Vance. My suspicions were confirmed. They were friends. "Your grandson assaulted his stepfather tonight," Camacho said, his voice practiced, confident. "Busted his lip, almost broke his nose. Carter's at the hospital getting checked out." He looked at me, almost daring me to dispute it. "We have a video from the house security camera. Shows the whole thing. The kid lost his temper." "I want to see that video." He turned his monitor towards me. A living room. Carter walks in, talking. Ethan appears, visibly upset. Then, suddenly, the image shows my grandson pushing Carter, who falls backward. And that's it. The recording ends. That's it? I demanded, my voice low and dangerous. Where's the rest of the video? This doesn't show anything conclusive. It's what we have, Ed. Carter is pressing charges for assault. The kid has a history of violent behavior at school. That's a lie. The anger started to boil. Ethan has never had disciplinary problems. I have reports that say otherwise. He gave me a smug look. I stood up, shaking with rage. I want to talk to my grandson. Right now. Camacho sighed. 5 minutes. He led me to Ethan's cell. When he saw me, Ethan stood up. A black eye, a cut on his eyebrow, a swollen lip. Seeing him like that, it was a mix of searing pain and absolute fury. Grandpa, his voice broke. It's okay, Ethan. I'm going to get you out of here. Camacho opened the cell. I went in and pulled Ethan into a hug, feeling him tremble. What really happened? I whispered, my voice barely audible. Carter came home drunk, like always. He started yelling that I stole money from his wallet. When I told him it wasn't true, he punched me. Tears streamed down his cheeks. I defended myself. I just pushed him to get him away from me, but he hit the table. Then he called the police, saying I attacked him. Where was your mom? She's out of town for work in Dallas. She gets back tomorrow. Ethan lowered his voice even more. It's not the first time Carter's hit me, Grandpa. But he always threatens me. Says, nobody will believe you if you talk. I glanced at Camacho, who was waiting impatiently at the door. I squeezed Ethan's shoulder. I'm going to get you out of here. I promise. You are not spending one more night in this cell. I walked out and confronted Camacho, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. My grandson has marks all over his face. Why isn't Carter detained, too? Why isn't it in your report that he assaulted the boy? Mr. Vance says the kid got those injuries while resisting the officers during the arrest. Camacho didn't even flinch. That's absurd, and you know it. I demand a doctor examine Ethan right now and document his injuries. It's pretty late for that, Ed. It's never too late to do things right, Victor. Either you call a doctor, or I call the DA on duty to report irregularities in your procedure. Camacho stared at me, weighing my threat. Finally, he sighed. Fine. I'll call the on-duty medical examiner, but it won't change anything, Ed. The kid is spending the night here, and tomorrow he'll see the judge. We'll see about that. As Camacho walked away to make the call, I pulled out my cell and dialed a number I hadn't used in a long time. 3 rings. Lieutenant Roberts, who is this? It's Ed Anderson, former inspector, 7th Precinct. I need your help. Urgently. Lieutenant April Roberts. One of the few people on the force I always trusted. Young, smart, and most importantly, incorruptible. I explained the situation quickly. I'm on duty tonight, she said. I can swing by in 20 minutes to verify the procedure. I appreciate it, April. While I waited, I watched the precinct. A couple of officers looked at me curiously. They probably knew my reputation. Inflexible, no deals, no favors. It earned me respect from some, and enemies from many. The main door opened. Carter Vance walked in. He had a bandage on his nose, his bottom lip was swollen. Our eyes met, and he stopped, surprised to see me. Then he smirked, heading straight for Camacho's office. My stomach churned. Minutes later, April Roberts arrived. Mid-30s, with the steady gaze of someone who knew her job and tolerated no obstacles. She greeted me with a firm handshake. Inspector Anderson, it's been a while. I'm not an inspector anymore, Lieutenant. You'll always be one to me, sir. You taught me half of what I know. Camacho and Carter emerged from the office. Seeing April, Camacho visibly tensed. Lieutenant Roberts, what brings you here at this hour? Routine procedure check, Inspector Camacho. I was informed of a domestic assault arrest, and I want to verify everything is in order. Carter stepped in, extending his hand, that fake, concerned smile plastered on his face. Carter Vance, sir. I'm the victim in this case. April ignored his hand. Lieutenant Roberts, I need to review the case file and see the detainee. I already called a doctor to examine the boy, Camacho interjected, trying to regain control. Excellent. I'll be present for that exam. Now, the file. Camacho led her to his office. Carter stayed with me in the hallway, his smug smile turning my stomach. "It's a shame we have to meet under these circumstances, Mr. Anderson," he said with false courtesy. "Ethan always speaks so highly of you." "Cut the hypocrisy, Vance. I know exactly what you did." His smile vanished. "Be careful what you imply. I have the video that proves who assaulted whom. A conveniently edited video. What happened before the part Camacho showed me? Nothing relevant." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Look, Mr. Anderson, I understand you want to defend your grandson, but the kid has problems. He needs discipline. A firm hand." The firm hand that gave him a black eye and split his eyebrow? I suppose he got that resisting arrest. I countered, my voice laced with sarcasm. "Or maybe you did it, and then you called your friend Camacho to cook up a story." Carter's face hardened. "Be careful, old man. Your time is over. Things work differently now." "You'd be surprised how well I know how things work now, Vance. And what I'm capable of doing for my grandson." We were interrupted by the medical examiner, a young man who looked fresh out of medical school. "Dr. Mendoza." Camacho and April came out of the office. "Dr. Mendoza," Camacho greeted him, trying to sound authoritative. "Thanks for coming so quickly. The detainee is this way." April gestured for the doctor to follow her toward the cells. Carter tried to follow, but April stopped him. "Authorized personnel only, Mr. Vance. I'm the complaining party. I have a right to be present." "Not during the medical exam," she said firmly. "Wait here." Carter shot me a furious look, as if I was to blame for this delay in his plans. He sat in one of the waiting room chairs, drumming his fingers nervously. April signaled for me to follow her. We entered the cell where the doctor was already examining Ethan. He took photos of the injuries, measured them, documented everything. "Can you tell me how you got these injuries?" the doctor asked. Ethan looked at me, seeking approval. I nodded slightly. "My stepfather hit me," Ethan said, his voice soft but clear. "First, a punch here." He pointed to his eye. "And then he shoved me against the wall. I hit my head and cut my eyebrow on a shelf." "When did this happen?" "Tonight. A little after 11. The doctor scribbled notes. When he finished, he turned to April. "The injuries are consistent with his story. The periorbital hematoma, the black eye, has the coloring of a blow from about 4 to 5 hours ago. The cut on the eyebrow is characteristic of an impact wound against an object with an edge, not a direct punch." April nodded. "Thank you, doctor. I need your report as soon as possible. You'll have it in an hour." When the doctor left, April looked at me. "This contradicts the initial report, Inspector." "Of course it does. Camacho is covering for Carter." "I also reviewed the video," she said in a low voice. "Something's off. The metadata shows it was edited 2 hours ago. The original recording must be longer. Can you get it? I need a warrant to access the home surveillance system. And for that, I need proof of evidence tampering." Ethan spoke up, a spark of hope in his eyes. "The neighbor, Mrs. Klein, she has cameras pointed at our driveway. She's always recording. Says people steal her flower pots." April's eyes lit up. "Do you know the exact address?" 247, Jacaranda Drive in the Valley neighborhood, Ethan replied. "I'm heading there right now," April said. "If that footage shows something different, we can turn this whole thing around." "I'll stay with him," I said, pointing to Ethan. "I won't leave him alone, Grandpa." She used the personal term, and I knew she understood. This stinks of corruption, and you know, that's what infuriates me the most. When April left, I sat next to Ethan on the cell bench. He was exhausted, scared, but I saw a spark of strength in his eyes that I'd always admired. "Does Mom know about this?" he asked. "Not yet. I was hoping to solve this before worrying her. She's going to take Carter's side. She always does." His voice was resigned. "Your mother loves you, Ethan. But sometimes love makes us blind. Carter, he manipulates her. Makes her believe I disrespect him, that you're the problem. And she believes him. Because he has money. Because ever since Dad died, Mom is scared of being alone." It hurt to hear, but I knew he was right. Grace, my daughter-in-law, never fully recovered from Daniel's death. My son, Ethan's father. They were very close. Carter appeared at the perfect moment, offering financial and emotional stability. Or so it seemed. We're going to fix this, I promise, Ethan. And after, you and I are going to have a long talk about everything that's been happening in that house. Time crawled by. Camacho appeared occasionally, giving us anxious looks. Carter stayed in the waiting room, talking quietly on his phone. Almost 2 hours later, the main door opened. April walked in, accompanied by a stern-looking older woman. District Attorney Melinda Moss. I recognized her immediately. Her reputation for being incorruptible preceded her. Behind them was a small elderly woman holding a cell phone. Mrs. Klein, I assumed. Camacho's expression turned to pure panic when he saw the DA. Carter stood up, confused by this unexpected turn. Inspector Camacho, Melinda Moss said, her voice firm. Lieutenant Roberts has informed me of possible irregularities in this case. Show me the file and the video immediately. While Camacho, visibly nervous, led the DA to his office, April approached our cell. We found something, she told me quietly. Mrs. Klein had recordings from 3 days ago showing Carter shoving Ethan against the door. And better yet, she has audio of him threatening him. Hope swelled in my chest, a powerful, unexpected wave. For the first time since I got here, I felt like things might actually turn out okay. The system was rotten, I knew that better than anyone. But there were. Still people like April and Melinda, fighting for justice. Thank you, I said to April, with all my heart. She smiled slightly. Don't thank me yet, Inspector. The night is young, and this battle is just beginning. The DA spent over an hour locked in Camacho's office. Through the blinds, I saw tense gestures, documents being pointed at, severe looks. Carter stayed in the waiting room, constantly checking his phone, trying to keep his composure. But his right leg bounced nervously, betraying his anxiety. Mrs. Klein, Ethan's neighbor, approached our cell with April. A small woman in her 70s, but with the sharp eyes of someone who'd seen a lot. So, you're the grandpa, she said, no nonsense. The boy always speaks well of you. Thank you for coming, ma'am. Mrs. Klein, she corrected me. And don't thank me. That man, she gestured discreetly toward Carter, is a devil in disguise. I've seen him. Know how he changes when he thinks no one is watching. Ethan looked at her with obvious gratitude. Mrs. Klein winked. I brought you a donut, kid, but these cops wouldn't let me give it to you. Said it might have a file in it. She let out a short laugh. The office door finally opened. The DA came out first, her face grim. Camacho followed, visibly uncomfortable. The DA approached our cell. Mr. Anderson, I'm District Attorney Melinda Moss. Her voice was firm but not hostile. We've reviewed the case, and I found significant irregularities in the procedure. Carter stood up, walking over quickly. DA Moss, a pleasure to meet you. Carter Vance. I trust you'll see justice done in this unfortunate incident. The DA barely looked at him. Mr. Vance, I suggest you contact a lawyer immediately. A lawyer? But I'm the victim here. That is yet to be determined, she replied dryly. Lieutenant Roberts, release Mr. Alvarado. His detention did not follow established protocols. April didn't hide her satisfaction as she opened the cell. Ethan looked at me, disbelieving. I can go. Yes, the DA confirmed. But I need both you and your grandfather to remain available for further statements. Carter stepped forward, visibly upset. This is unacceptable. You're just letting my attacker go. What kind of justice is this? Mr. Vance? The DA's voice took on a sharp edge. The recordings we've reviewed show a very different version of events. Tampering with evidence is a federal crime. If you wish to avoid more serious charges, I suggest you moderate your tone and cooperate fully with the investigation. Carter turned pale. He looked at Camacho, who avoided his gaze, understanding that the ship was sinking. Inspector Camacho, the DA continued, her gaze fixed on him. You are temporarily relieved of your duties until the internal investigation is complete. Surrender your badge and weapon to the officer on duty. Camacho's face twisted in a mix of disbelief and contained rage. This is a mistake, DA. My procedures were standard. Your procedures included accepting tampered evidence and omitting crucial information from the initial report. The medical evaluation of Mr. Alvarado directly contradicts your statement of facts. The DA didn't raise her voice, but every word landed like a hammer. Lieutenant Roberts is in charge of this precinct until further notice. We left the precinct just as the sky began to lighten. The cool morning air was refreshing after hours in that oppressive environment. Ethan walked beside me in silence, visibly exhausted but relieved. "Where are we going, Grandpa?" "To my house." "You can't go back to yours." "Not right now." In the car, I noticed Ethan slowly relaxing. The silence between us was comfortable, but I knew we had a lot to talk about. "This isn't over, is it?" he finally asked. "No, Ethan. It's just beginning." At my house, I made coffee while Ethan took a quick shower. I lent him some old clothes from when my son, Daniel, Ethan's father, lived with me. They were a bit big, but they'd do. Sitting in the kitchen with steaming mugs, we finally had that pending conversation. "How long has this been going on, Ethan?" My grandson stared into the dark liquid. "Soon after he married Mom." At first, it was just yelling, small humiliations. He said I was lazy, that I didn't help around the house, that I spent too much. "Did your mother know?" "It always happened when she wasn't there." And when I told her, Carter denied everything. He said I was exaggerating or just making things up to separate them. Ethan swallowed hard. After a while, Mom stopped believing me. "When did it turn from words to fists?" "About 6 months ago. He came home drunk, furious, because he'd lost money on an investment. He said I was bad luck. That since I came into his life, everything was going wrong." Ethan's voice broke slightly. "He slapped me so hard I fell to the floor. Then he cried, apologized, gave me money so I wouldn't say anything. I felt the anger rising, hot and swift, but I forced myself to stay calm." "Why didn't you call me then?" "I thought I could handle it. And I was afraid that if I reported him, Mom would suffer." She seemed happy for the first time since Dad died. The phone interrupted us. It was Grace, Ethan's mother. "Dad? Carter just called me, completely hysterical. He says Ethan attacked him and that you interfered to get him out of the precinct. What is going on?" I explained the situation as calmly as possible, but Grace was skeptical. "I know Carter, Dad. He's not the monster you're describing. You haven't seen your son. He has a black eye and his eyebrow is split open. Are you going to say he did that to himself, too?" The silence on the other end of the line told me everything. Part of her suspected, but she chose not to see. "I'm on my way," she finally said. "I want to talk to Ethan." After I hung up, I met my grandson's questioning gaze. "Mom's coming." "Yes, but you don't need to worry. I won't let her take you back to that house." While we waited, Ethan finally fell asleep on the sofa. I watched him, remembering when he was just a boy, running through this same living room, chasing his father. Daniel, my son, died when Ethan was just 8. A highway accident as absurd and sudden as these tragedies usually are. Grace was shattered, and Ethan grew up without that much-needed father figure. The doorbell rang just after noon. Grace was pale, with dark circles under her eyes. And to my surprise, Carter was standing next to her. "What is he doing here?" I asked, not bothering to hide my hostility. "He's my husband, Dad, and we need to resolve this as a family." "A family doesn't beat its members, Grace." Carter stepped in, putting on his best concerned man face. "Mr. Anderson, I understand your concern. There was a misunderstanding last night. Things got out of control, but I assure you, I would never intentionally hurt Ethan." "Save the act, Vance. The DA has evidence of your previous assaults." Carter paled for a moment, but recovered quickly. "That meddling old woman twisted the facts. Any physical contact with Ethan has been purely disciplinary." "Disciplinary?" April's voice surprised us all. She was standing right inside my doorway in uniform, her expression serious. I hadn't heard her arrive. "Lieutenant Roberts," Carter said nervously. "We weren't expecting you." "Evidently." April stepped forward. "Mr. Vance, I have a warrant to seize the electronic devices from your home, including the video surveillance system. We need to recover the original recordings." "This is an invasion of privacy," Carter protested. "On what authority?" "On the authority of this warrant, signed by Judge Miranda Espinoza." April showed him the document. Furthermore, the district attorney has requested that you report for a formal statement this afternoon. Grace looked at me, confused and scared. Dad, what is happening? The noise woke Ethan, who came to the door, rubbing his eyes. When he saw his mother, he ran to hug her. When he saw Carter, he stopped cold. What is he doing here? Ethan, we need to talk, Grace said, trying to sound conciliatory. Carter says there was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Ethan stepped back. He hit me, Mom. Like he's done so many times when you're not here. And then he threatens me so I won't say anything. Carter moved toward him, his gesture threatening. Stop lying, you ungrateful little brat. After everything I've done for you and your mother, Mr. Vance. April interrupted, stepping between them. I suggest you maintain your distance from Mr. Alvarado. Any attempt at intimidation will be added to the existing charges. Carter glared at her with barely contained hatred, but he backed down. This isn't over. I have powerful friends, connections. Your connections are also being investigated, April replied, unflustered, including your relationship with Inspector Camacho and certain City Hall officials. Carter looked at Grace. Are you going to allow this? Let them destroy our family over your son's lies. Grace seemed torn between two loyalties. She looked at Ethan, then at Carter, then at me. I need to see those recordings, she said, her voice breaking. I need to know the truth. The truth is right in front of you, I told her, pointing to Ethan's injuries. You just need to open your eyes to see it. Carter realized he was losing ground. His face transformed, dropping the mask of the reasonable man. You asked for this, you meddling old man. If you think this will end well for you or for the brat, you are very mistaken. He turned and walked to his car, ignoring April's calls for him to report for his statement. Let him go, Lieutenant, I said. He won't get far. Grace came into the house, protectively hugging Ethan. April stayed with me at the door for a moment. He should have presented himself voluntarily, she said. Or I'll have to arrest him. Will he? He's too arrogant to believe he's in real trouble. He's underestimating the seriousness of this. We found more videos on Mrs. Klein's phone. Episodes of abuse going back months. Does the DA have all this? Everything. And she is furious. Few things make Melinda Moss angrier than child abuse and police corruption. April looked at me seriously. Watch your grandson, Inspector. Men like him become most dangerous when they feel they're losing control. After April left, I went inside. Grace was sitting on the sofa, her head in her hands. Ethan was in the kitchen, making tea. Why didn't I see it? Grace murmured as I sat beside her. How could I have been so blind? Love blinds us sometimes, I said softly. And Carter is a good manipulator. You're not the first, and you won't be the last to fall for someone like that. My own son, she sobbed. My boy. And I didn't protect him. You can still protect him now, I said. By leaving Carter. By testifying against him. Grace looked at me, determination slowly growing in her eyes. I will. He will never lay a hand on him again. The next few hours passed in a strange calm. Ethan and Grace talked for a long time in the guest room. I tried to keep busy, making food that nobody really had an appetite for. The phone rang several times. The DA, Lieutenant Roberts, even a couple of reporters who somehow got wind of the case. I told them all the same thing, we'll talk after we rest. At nightfall, after Ethan had finally fallen asleep, Grace sat with me on the porch. I never imagined it would end like this, she said, looking at the stars. When I met Carter, he seemed so perfect. Attentive, loving, stable. Manipulators always seem perfect at first. There were signs, she admitted. Controlling comments, unexplainable jealousy, little lies. But I convinced myself they were unimportant. What will you do now? Divorce him, obviously. Testify against him. Try to repair my relationship with Ethan. She sighed deeply. It will be a long process. I'll be here to support you both, I assured her. My phone vibrated. A text from April. Carter never showed up for his statement. We've issued a warrant for his arrest. A chill ran down my spine. A man like Carter, cornered, was dangerous. What's wrong? Grace asked, noticing my expression. Nothing important, I lied, not wanting to worry her more. You should get some rest. That night, I slept fitfully, waking at every noise. At 5 a.m., the phone rang. It was April again. Inspector, we found Carter's car abandoned near the airport, but there's no record of him getting on a flight. We think he might be using fake documents or someone is helping him hide. Have you checked his bank accounts? They've been frozen since last night. And we have surveillance on all his known properties. Watch Camacho, too. If anyone knows where Carter is hiding, it's him. Camacho is under constant surveillance. I hung up and stared out the window. The dawn light began to illuminate the empty street. Everything seemed quiet, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this calm was just the prelude to something worse. 2 days passed with no news of Carter. Ethan started to relax, even smiling occasionally. Grace filed for divorce and filed a formal complaint for domestic violence. The DA informed me that the investigation had widened. Apparently, Carter was involved in shady deals with several municipal officials, including bribery and influence peddling. On the morning of the third day, Grace decided to go back to her house briefly to pick up some belongings. I insisted on going with her, but she refused. The police have had the house under surveillance all night, she said. Carter isn't there. Besides, I'll go with an officer. I'll be fine. Something inside me said it was a bad idea, but I didn't want to seem overprotective. Grace already felt guilty enough. Call me when you get there, and before you leave, I told her. I promise. Ethan and I stayed home, playing chess to distract ourselves. He was good at the game, calculating and patient. He reminded me of his father. The phone rang and I answered, expecting to hear Grace. Instead, it was Carter. Listen to me carefully, old man. His voice was agitated, frantic. Your daughter-in-law is with me. If you want to see her again, bring Ethan to the abandoned warehouse at 54 Industrial Avenue. 1 hour. Just you two. If I see a single cop, Grace will pay. Carter, don't be a fool. 1 hour, he shouted and hung up. I looked at Ethan, who had grasped the gravity of the situation from my expression. I couldn't tell him the truth, but I couldn't lie either. What's wrong, Grandpa? Is it Mom? Your mother is fine, I said, trying to sound convincing. But I need you to stay here while I go take care of something important. It's Carter, isn't it? Ethan's intuition surprised me. What has he done? At that moment, my phone rang again. It was April. Inspector, we have a situation. Grace never made it to her house. The officer who was supposed to escort her was found unconscious in his patrol car. Carter has her, I said directly. He just called me. He wants me to bring Ethan to a warehouse on Industrial Avenue in 1 hour or he'll hurt Grace. Don't go alone, Inspector. It's a trap. I know, but I can't risk my daughter-in-law's life. Get me the exact address. I'll send undercover units. I gave her the details and hung up. Ethan stared at me. I'm going with you, he said firmly. No way. It's too dangerous. It's my mother, Grandpa, and this is my fault. It's not your fault, Ethan. None of this is your fault. If you don't take me, I'll go on my own. His determination was absolute. I looked at him, weighing the situation. If I left him here, he'd probably try to follow me, putting himself in more danger. If I took him, at least I could try to protect him. All right, I finally gave in. But you will do exactly what I say. No questions. Understood. He nodded gravely. Understood. As we prepared to leave, I couldn't help but think we were walking into the darkest part of this story. But I also knew that sometimes you have to face the darkness before the light can finally come. The drive to the warehouse felt eternal. I drove in silence, Ethan beside me. His hands were shaking slightly, but his gaze reflected a determination that reminded me of his father. Before leaving, I'd tucked my old service pistol into the back of my waistband. I hoped I'd never have to use it again. But life has cruel ways of changing our plans. Do you have a plan? Ethan asked, breaking the silence. Lieutenant Roberts is sending undercover units. We won't be alone. What if they're late? What if Carter sees the cops and hurts Mom? I didn't have a comforting answer, so I gave him the truth. We'll do everything possible to make sure that doesn't happen. My phone vibrated with a text from April. Team's in position in 15 minutes. Wait before you go in. But we didn't have 15 minutes. As we got to Industrial Avenue, I saw the abandoned warehouse at the end of the street. A decrepit red brick building with broken windows and graffiti. A perfect place for an ambush. I parked a block away, scanning the surroundings. No other vehicles were visible, but I spotted a black sedan with tinted windows near the side entrance. Must be Carter's car. Stay here, I told Ethan. Grandpa, he said, we both have to go. I know, but I'm not putting you in danger. I'm already in danger, he replied, with a maturity that surprised me. And so is Mom. You can't protect us both by staying here. He was right. It pained me to admit it, but before I could respond, my phone rang again. It was Carter. I see you've arrived. Get in here now or your daughter-in-law pays. We're coming, Carter. Don't do anything stupid. You have 2 minutes, he shouted and hung up. I looked at Ethan, feeling the weight of responsibility crushing me. Stay behind me at all times. Understood. He nodded gravely. We walked toward the warehouse, each step heavier than the last. The main door was ajar, creaking ominously as I pushed it open. The inside was dark, barely lit by light filtering through dirty windows and some skylights. Carter. I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. In the back, Ed. Both of you come on. We moved forward, between boxes and abandoned machinery. The place smelled like damp and rust. When we reached a larger open space, I saw them. Carter was standing, holding Grace by the arm. Her face was stained with tears, but she seemed unharmed. Mom, Ethan shouted, trying to run forward. I stopped him, putting an arm out. Easy, I whispered, then to Carter. We're here. Let my daughter-in-law go. Carter let out a bitter laugh. You think it's that simple, old man? You ruined my life, my reputation, my business. Everything is in jeopardy because of you. You did this to yourself, I replied. No one forced you to hit a child. The brat needed discipline. Carter tightened his grip on Grace's arm, making her wince. And you meddling old fool, had no right to interfere in my family. Let me go, Carter, Grace said, her voice trembling. Please, this is only making things worse. Shut up, he yelled, shaking her. You betrayed me too. After everything I did for you and your ungrateful son. I scanned the situation, weighing my options. Carter seemed more unstable than ever. His eyes had the feverish glint of a cornered animal. I didn't see a weapon, but that didn't mean he didn't have one. What do you want, Carter? I asked, trying to buy time. I needed April's units to arrive. I want my life back, he answered, his voice cracking slightly. I want all the charges dropped. I want the DA to stop the investigation into my business. And I want this brat, he pointed at Ethan, to take back all his lies. They're not lies, Ethan said, with surprising calm. And you're right about one thing. You ruined your own life. Every time you hit me, every time you threatened me, every time you manipulated my mother, you dug your own grave. Carter let go of Grace and lunged toward Ethan. It was the moment I was waiting for. I moved quickly, putting myself between them. Don't you dare touch him. Or what, old man? What are you going to do? Carter shoved me, underestimating my strength. I didn't budge. Get away from my family. I warned him, feeling the pistol press against my lower back. Carter smiled, a chilling, empty smile. Your family? How touching. The old cop protecting his own. He turned as if to walk away, but suddenly spun and threw a punch that I barely managed to dodge. The sudden movement made me stumble back, giving Carter time to pull something from his waistband. A revolver. He pointed it directly at me. Now we're going to talk seriously, he said with a chilling calm. You and I know how this works, Ed. Men like us understand the language of power. Put the gun down, Carter. The police are on their way. Of course they are. I was expecting them. He smiled again. But by the time they get here, we'll have already settled our business. Grace took advantage of the distraction to move to Ethan, hugging him protectively. Carter looked at them with contempt. Look at the happy family. How sweet. Carter, I tried to reason with him. You can still get out of this. Put the gun down. Surrender. Cooperate with the DA. Maybe they'll make a deal. A deal? He laughed, a harsh, guttural sound. No, Ed. Men like me don't make deals. We either win or... He left the sentence hanging, but his look said it all. I heard a faint noise behind me. Someone had entered the warehouse. I kept my expression neutral, not wanting to alert Carter. "Why don't we let Grace and Ethan leave?" I proposed. "This is between you and me." "No," Carter replied, waving the gun. "They're part of this. They're my insurance." The noise became more obvious. Carter tensed, looking into the shadows behind me. "Who's there?" he yelled. "Show yourself or I shoot." I took advantage of his momentary distraction to move closer to Grace and Ethan, positioning myself in front of them. If Carter shot, he'd have to go through me first. "Police." April's voice echoed in the warehouse. "Drop the weapon, Mr. Vance." Carter seemed surprised but not scared. "Lieutenant Roberts, how predictable. Did you come alone or bring backup?" "You're surrounded, Vance. There's no way out." "There are. Always ways out, Lieutenant." Carter adjusted his stance, steadying his grip on the revolver. "You just need the right incentive." He suddenly pointed the gun at Ethan. "Either you let me walk out of here, or the kid pays for everything." It all happened in an instant. Without thinking, I lunged at Carter just as he pulled the trigger. The shot echoed through the warehouse, deafening. I felt a sharp pain in my shoulder, but I managed to tackle Carter, bringing him to the ground. The gun fell from his hand, skittering across the concrete floor. April emerged from the shadows, running toward us. Grace screamed, holding Ethan, who seemed unharmed. Carter and I struggled on the floor. Despite my age, the adrenaline gave me the strength to keep him pinned until April arrived and cuffed him. "Are you okay, Inspector?" April asked, noticing the blood on my shirt. "It's just a scratch," I lied, feeling the pain intensify. "Take care of him." More officers flooded into the warehouse, securing the place. One of them came to me with a first aid kit while Carter was pulled to his feet and led away, screaming threats and insults. "This isn't over," he yelled. "I have powerful friends. I'll get revenge on all of you." Grace and Ethan rushed over, worried about my wound. "Grandpa, you're bleeding a lot," Ethan said, his eyes full of tears. "I've had worse," I tried to reassure him, though the pain was considerable. "An ambulance is on the way," April informed me. "Hang on, Inspector." As the paramedic put pressure on the wound, I looked at my family. Despite the terror they'd just gone through, I saw relief on their faces. Carter couldn't hurt them anymore. In the ambulance, with Grace and Ethan by my side, I felt a strange sense of peace. The wound hurt, but it was a reminder that I was alive, that we all survived this nightmare. "Thank you, Dad," Grace whispered, squeezing my hand. "For saving us." "I always will," I replied, feeling the sedative they gave me start to kick in. "I'll always be there for you." The days in the hospital passed slowly. The bullet grazed the bone in my shoulder, but did no serious damage. The doctors said I'd have full mobility after a few weeks of therapy. April visited me regularly, keeping me updated on the case. Carter was facing multiple charges: kidnapping, aggravated assault, child abuse, attempted homicide, obstruction of justice. The list was long. Camacho had also been formally charged with cover-up and evidence tampering. DA Moss had widened the investigation, uncovering a corruption network involving several city officials. One afternoon, while Ethan was helping me with the hospital food, I noticed he was unusually thoughtful. "What's on your mind, son?" I was thinking about everything that happened, about how one man can cause so much harm. "Some men confuse power with the right to abuse others," I told him. "It's a hard lesson, but an important one." "I think I want to study law," he said suddenly. "I want to help people like us, people facing injustice." I smiled, feeling an immense sense of pride. "You'll be an excellent lawyer, Ethan." "It's all thanks to you, Grandpa." His eyes got misty. "If I hadn't had the courage to call you that night, but you did," I interrupted. "And that shows the kind of man you are." The door opened and DA Moss walked in. It was the first time I'd seen her since that night at the precinct. She looked tired but satisfied. "Inspector Anderson, I'm glad to see you recovering." "DA Moss." What a surprise. "I came to inform you personally. The judge has denied bail for Carter Vance. He will remain in custody until the trial." "And Camacho?" I asked. "Also in custody. He's cooperating, providing information on the entire corruption network." The DA looked at Ethan. Your testimony will be crucial, young man. Do you think you can do it? Ethan nodded firmly. I'm ready. Good. Because what you've been through, unfortunately, is not an isolated case. The DA sat on the edge of my bed. We're implementing a new protocol in the Justice Department precisely to prevent the manipulation of digital evidence in domestic violence cases. A new protocol? I asked, intrigued. Yes. She actually smiled slightly. We're calling it the Anderson Protocol, in honor of you and your grandson. The news left me speechless. Ethan looked at me with shining eyes. Did you hear that, Grandpa? Your name is going to be part of the justice system. Our name, I corrected him. This victory belongs to both of us. The DA got up to leave. We'll need you both at the courthouse next week. Lieutenant Roberts will come pick you up. We'll be there, Ethan promised. When the DA left, Grace came in with coffee and pastries from the hospital cafeteria. She'd gotten some color back in her cheeks, though she still looked exhausted. Good news? She asked, noticing our expressions. The best. Ethan replied and told her about the Anderson Protocol. Grace looked at me with a mix of gratitude and regret. Dad, I can never thank you enough. If you hadn't been there for us, but I said simply. And I always will be. That night, after Grace and Ethan had left, I was alone in the hospital room reflecting. I thought about the terror of that late-night call, the frustration with Camacho, the sharp pain of the gunshot. But I also thought about my grandson's courage, April's tenacity, and D.A. Moss's integrity. The system isn't perfect. It's full of Camachos and Carters, people who abuse their power. But there are also those who fight for justice, who refuse to look the other way. My phone vibrated on the nightstand. A text from April. Case officially closed. The trial will be quick with all the evidence we have. Get some rest, Inspector. You've earned it. I smiled in the dim light of the room. Maybe my career as a cop ended years ago, but I never stopped fighting for what's right. And now that fight had taken on new meaning through Ethan. I closed my eyes, feeling a true sense of peace for the first time in days. The pain in my shoulder was a small price to pay for my family's safety, and knowing our experience would help protect others filled me with a quiet pride. Tomorrow I'd be discharged. Tomorrow the real healing would begin. Not just my physical wound, but the invisible wounds Carter left on Ethan and Grace. It would be a long road, but we'd walk it together as a family. And as I drifted off to sleep, I thought about all those people suffering in silence, trapped in cycles of abuse and fear. Maybe our story, when it gets out, will give them the courage to make that desperate call in the middle of the night. To ask for help. To break the silence. Because sometimes, all it takes is the courage to dial a number and say, I'm scared. Please help me. The courthouse hallways were crowded, but I walked with determination, leaning on a cane the doctors insisted I use for at least another month. The wound in my shoulder had healed well, though it still ached when the weather changed. Ethan walked beside me, tall and calm. In these past few weeks, he'd matured so much that I sometimes hardly recognized the scared teenager who called me that night. Today was sentencing day. After a trial that lasted 3 weeks, the judge would announce the fate of Carter Vance and Victor Camacho. The evidence presented by the prosecution was overwhelming. The recovered videos, Mrs. Klein's recordings, Ethan's brave testimony, and the medical reports documenting the pattern of abuse. Nervous? I asked my grandson as we waited outside the courtroom. A little, he admitted. Do you think he'll really pay for what he did? D.A. Moss did an exceptional job, and your testimony was flawless, Ethan. Firm, clear, without contradictions. Grace joined us, wearing a formal suit. She changed in these weeks, slowly getting back the strength she lost during her marriage to Carter. The divorce was moving forward, and she'd started therapy to work through the guilt that still haunted her. The courtroom is packed, she informed us. There are several reporters. This case has gotten a lot of attention. It was true. What started as a domestic violence case had turned into a wider investigation of municipal corruption. Several officials had already been indicted. The courtroom doors opened, and we went in. We sat in the front row behind the prosecution's table. April Roberts was already there, reviewing documents. She nodded at us. On the other side, Carter and Camacho's lawyers were talking quietly. Their clients hadn't been brought in yet. "All rise," the bailiff announced as Judge Reynolds entered. He was a man in his 60s, known for his fairness. "You may be seated. Bring in the accused." Carter and Camacho were escorted in by guards, both wearing orange prison jumpsuits. Carter seemed to have lost weight, and his usual arrogance was gone, replaced by a sullen expression. He looked at us briefly, and I think I saw a flash of hatred in his eyes before he looked away. The judge adjusted his glasses and reviewed the documents. After considering all the evidence presented and the jury's deliberations, this court is ready to pass sentence. The room was dead silent. I felt Ethan's hand tense up in mine. "In the case of the state versus Carter Vance, the jury has found you guilty on all counts: aggravated domestic violence, child abuse, obstruction of justice, kidnapping, and attempted homicide." The judge looked directly at Carter. "This court sentences you to 22 years in prison, with no possibility of parole for at least 15 years. A murmur went through the room. Carter remained impassive, as if he expected this. As for the accused Victor Camacho, the judge continued, "Having been found guilty of abuse of authority, cover-up, evidence tampering, and obstruction of justice, you are sentenced to 12 years in prison, with possibility of review after 8. Considering your cooperation with the DA's broader investigation." Camacho hung his head, visibly shaken. Furthermore, the judge added, "This court orders both defendants to pay restitution to the victims, the amount to be determined in a subsequent civil hearing." The gavel came down, sealing their fate. Ethan exhaled slowly. Grace sobbed quietly beside me. Session adjourned, the judge declared as the guards led Carter and Camacho away. DA Moss came over. "Justice served," she said with professional satisfaction. The judge was as firm as we'd hoped. "Thank you for everything, DA," I said sincerely. "Don't thank me. Thank your grandson." She looked at Ethan with admiration. His testimony was crucial, especially when he described the systematic pattern of abuse. Many teenagers wouldn't have had that clarity or courage. Ethan smiled, a genuine smile. "I just told the truth. Sometimes that's the hardest thing to do." The DA checked her watch. "I have to go. We have a press conference in 20 minutes about the case and the new protocol. Would you like to join me?" I looked at Ethan and Grace. "I think we need a moment in private," Grace answered. "It's been an intense morning." "Of course. Lieutenant Roberts has all your information for the official Anderson Protocol presentation ceremony next week." When the DA left, we stayed in the nearly empty courtroom for a few more minutes. "How do you feel?" I asked Ethan. "Relieved, I think. But also strange. Part of me hoped he would apologize, show some kind of remorse." "Men like Carter rarely admit their mistakes," I told him. "They always blame others." "Do you think he'll change in prison?" "I don't know, son. But what's important is that he can't hurt you anymore." We left the courthouse through a side door, avoiding the reporters. The day was bright and warm. "Let's get something to eat," Grace suggested. "We need to celebrate this." At the restaurant, I looked at my family. There was a lightness to them I hadn't seen in a long time. The shadows hadn't disappeared, but they were less dense. "Have you decided which university you're applying to?" I asked Ethan. "I'm looking at State University," he replied. "They have an excellent law program, and DA Moss said she could recommend me for a special mentorship program." "That's a great opportunity," Grace said with pride. "And I just got a new job. I start next month as a supervisor at my company." "Everything is looking up," I said, raising my glass. "To new beginnings." We toasted, and for a moment, the past seemed like a distant country we'd managed to escape from. The following week, we settled into a new routine. My shoulder improved enough to ditch the cane. Ethan prepared his university applications with renewed enthusiasm. Grace spent more time at my house than in her own new apartment. One afternoon, I got a call from April. "Inspector, we have a date for the official Anderson Protocol presentation. This Friday, 11 a.m. at the main auditorium. The DA would like you and Ethan to say a few words, just to share your experience." When I told Ethan, I saw the excitement in his eyes. It's a chance to help other people who are going through the same thing. The day of the presentation, the auditorium was full. Police officers, DAs, judges. DA Moss explained the new protocol, a set of procedures to guarantee the integrity of digital evidence in domestic violence and child abuse cases. It included metadata verification, a reinforced chain of custody, and independent forensic analysis. This protocol was born from a case that revealed serious flaws in our system, she said. When it was my turn, I stood up. For 35 years, I served as a police inspector, I began. I thought I knew the system, its strengths and weaknesses. But it was only when my own grandson was trapped in that system that I truly understood how vulnerable victims of domestic abuse really are. I briefly told our story, highlighting the crucial support from people like April Roberts and Melinda Moss. When Ethan took the microphone, his voice was clear and firm. He spoke directly to the young people present, describing the subtle signs of abuse he'd ignored, the psychological manipulation, the fear. If you are going through something similar, know that you are not alone, he said. There are people who will believe you. You just need to take that first step. Make that call, like I did. His words were met with deafening applause. Months passed. Ethan was accepted to the state university. Grace finalized her divorce. I returned to my old hobbies. One afternoon, almost a year after that night, I received an official envelope. Carter's appeal had been denied. I didn't mention it to Ethan or Grace. There was no reason to disturb the peace they'd worked so hard to find. The next morning, Ethan came over for breakfast. He was on break and now volunteered as a mentor for other young survivors. I have something to show you, he said, pulling a paper from his bag. It was an acceptance letter for a summer law program. This is impressive, Ethan. DA Moss recommended me. She says I have potential for the domestic violence prosecution unit. The path he chose isn't easy, but there was a strength in him, a resilience born from his own pain. You know it's strange, Grandpa? He said. Sometimes I think about Carter, and I don't feel fear or hatred anymore. Just pity. That's part of healing, I told him. Do you still hate him? I considered it. Let's just say I don't waste my energy on him. I prefer to focus it on you, on our family, on the good things that came from this. And it was true. The Anderson Protocol was being adopted in other states. Ethan had found his calling. Grace had reclaimed her life. That weekend, we had a small celebration at my house. Grace brought food. Ethan brought friends from his support group. Mrs. Klein even came, bringing donuts. As I watched this new, expanded family, April came up to me. Did you know 3 other states are adopting the protocol? She said. They're considering it at the national level. And I made captain. Congratulations, Captain. Well deserved. Thanks, Inspector. I owe part of it to you and Ethan. As the party continued, I stepped onto the porch. The sky was turning orange. I thought about the contrasts. While we celebrated, Carter served his sentence. While Ethan built a future, Camacho's career was destroyed. I didn't feel satisfaction, just the certainty that justice, though imperfect and slow, finally arrived. Ethan came out to find me. Everything okay, Grandpa? You're missing dessert. Just thinking, I said, putting my arm around his shoulders. About how proud I am of you. Of the man you've become. Thanks to you, he replied, resting his head on my good shoulder. If I hadn't made that call, but you did, I finished. And that changed everything. We went back inside together. Grace greeted us with a smile, a lightness in her face that reminded me of the young woman I knew before life hit her so hard. As we ate dessert, I thought about all those phones ringing in the dead of night, about the trembling voices asking for help. The story that began with a desperate call didn't end with a fairy tale. Real life rarely offers those. But it gave us something just as valuable, the chance to turn pain into purpose, fear into determination, and a traumatic experience into a legacy that will protect many others. And maybe in the end, that's the most important victory of all. Have you ever faced a moment where one call, one decision, changed the entire course of your life? What did you do? I'd really love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below.